Hi, and welcome back to the Health, Weight Loss, and Wellness Show. And today we have a very special guest named Joe Busuttil. Now, let me tell you about Joe. Joe has 15 years experience in mental health, specializing in anxiety and stress management. He also helps clients to tap into their potential in all they wish to accomplish. Recently, he started working in the area of suicide prevention and assisting men to acknowledge their shame and find the vulnerability inside them to get to the other side. Joe also works with couples to help them find new communication methods, understand those values, and focus on the true path they want to lead. And Joe and I have known each other for a very long time. And if you've followed me, you know that when I talk about my best friend, Joe, you finally get to meet him. So welcome. Thank you so much for giving us your time today, Joe.
Hi, Jodie. How are you? Hello, everyone.
I'm so
This
good.
is sort of like really cool. I'm in Melbourne. It's a blue sky behind me. So thank you for, I've been dying to get on your platform because I thought it was for women only. And I think it's good that we have different voices sharing different things. So thank you.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like, I'm doing this because there's not a lot of content for people or for women over 40. And I know you are doing a lot in the men's zone because there's not a lot of content for men either. So I think you totally get us, and you've been listening to my story all the way along and going through what I'm experiencing. So you also have an insight in what goes on with women and the struggles that we go through. So you're the fly on my wall.
Well, I started the secret men's business, and the first thing I thought about when I did that, remember I rang you and I said, hey, do you want to run the female version?
Yeah.
And I know you were busy doing other things, but other girl that I know did that. So I instantly always think that whenever, even though I do men's stuff, it really is for everyone because it's a place for women to go and understand their men. It's about men to go there and understand themselves. So you create that harmony. Because I think that's one of the big problems is that we're not really listening effectively. Sometimes we're very separate, us, them, and now it's really about all of us.
Yeah. And look, you've got a special, well, not a special, but you've got an interesting story. And I know it, but how about you share that with everybody?
Well, I wanted to firstly say that before I tell you the recent story, I want to explain how I became a therapist. So I became a therapist because I was working in HR and I was in a relationship and I had no awareness and I was just getting on with life. And then my relationship ended and I ended up having a breakdown. And I remember it's so clear. I remember it was a Wednesday and I was on the floor desperate and I rang someone and they said, here, ring this person. But the day I rang, they were closed. The clinic was closed. And I left a voicemail. They must have thought I was crazy because I said, help me. And they rang back. And I remember going to see this person and she changed my life. So that was a big transformation, just trusting, when you meet someone and you just know that they're going to project you into a different place.
Yeah.
Because one of her questions to me was, what do you want out of life? And I just said, I want to be you. And she looked after me. And then I became a therapist. And then years later, I realized that I found my purpose in life, which was good, but I forgot to actually look after myself. So my purpose was, being a therapist, becoming a teacher, doing client work, all this stuff. And I sort of thought I was going to work and loving it, but I wasn't eating properly or I wasn't sleeping. I was working 7 days a week. And I started to get these signs. I remember the very first one was my eye would twitch. Right. And I felt I need a holiday. Then my arm would get heavy and I couldn't pick up a pillow. That worried me a little bit, but it went away. And then I found it hard climbing stairs. And I knew I was going to go on a holiday very, very soon. And then once the holiday came, I remember getting on the plane and I was exhausted and I just slept on the plane. I was going on a cruise in Singapore. And once I landed, I couldn't walk. That plane trip, my body must have gone, oh my God, Joe stopped.
Yeah.
We need to catch up. And so I could not get off the plane. I couldn't walk. I literally was disabled. And it was the biggest stress because I was traveling with someone and they wanted to continue on the trip and they started to make me feel guilty. Like, you're fine, da, da, da. But I knew something was wrong. And so I made a decision and just got the plane home and went straight to hospital. And so that begins the journey of learning how to walk again. And when you have to learn how to walk again or learn how to do anything, I guess for women, it would be maybe getting older and maybe having menopause, or maybe it's a separation, or whenever you have to learn something new, it is really, really tough. And especially when it's something that you think you know. Like I thought I knew how to, I could walk.
Yeah.
And then you had to learn all that again. So I remember I didn't panic and I didn't get upset, right? Because in my head, I had predicted that I would walk by Christmas. And each month was getting closer and I wasn't walking. And I'm thinking, I'm going to walk by Christmas. I'm going to walk. I kept saying that, right? And it's so much so that I bought a ticket to America for Christmas because I would normally go there for a conference. And I still couldn't go. I still couldn't walk. And then finally, that's when it hit me. So I couldn't walk in April. Then December is when it hit me. And I had to go through all the mental part of it.
Yeah.
So I guess I learned about denial, right? I learned about how I was probably resilient through those earlier months. And, I think that the thing that I learned the most was surrender. My coach at the time kept saying to me, you're not going to walk until you can surrender.
Yeah.
And I thought I knew what that meant. Right? And he kept saying it. And I kept saying, what are you talking about? He goes, you have to surrender, meaning that you don't want to know the outcome.
Yeah.
You don't need to think about walking.
We've talked about that a bit, isn't it? It's a hard concept to grasp when you're in it.
It's so hard.
Right?
It's really, it's called faith. So for some people that are listening that are religious, it may come easy.
Yeah.
For me, it made me realize how many expectations I had. And also how many things you just take for granted. Like I thought that I was nothing without walking.
Yeah, wow.
So, that taught me then how to understand that there's no such thing as a bad situation. So I think we live in a culture and a society where there's good and there's bad. So for me, walking was good. Being in a wheelchair was bad. Yeah. And what comes with being bad? Anxiety, depression, sadness. So it made me realize, okay, what do I need to learn here? And the coach kept telling me, surrender, because you're the same. It doesn't matter what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I said, what do you mean? I can't walk. And he goes, but you're the same. You're alive. What are you doing today?
Yeah, wow.
In your body, right? And it took a long time. And then I finally got it.
Yeah.
And 3 days later, I walked.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was really powerful to think all those months I didn't walk because my body was so anxious and uptight from not walking. Yeah. And then once I said to myself, I don't care if I walk, I surrender. What happens, happens. My body was able to heal. Yeah. So it really does show you how we are probably taught to expect a lot of things, aren't we?
And I really like that example. And as you're talking and as I'm talking to all the speakers in this show is, I'm learning myself. And so listening to that, and I was also thinking about, okay, so I've got clients in mind. So how can I then, how are the people watching? Excuse me, it's been one of those croaky days. How are the people watching then relate to what they're going through? So if you think about somebody that has struggled with weight loss all their lives, right? And so surrendering to the fact that you are that size and shape is something that I think that we need to do. And it was something that I had to go through, going through perimenopause and then chronic fatigue. Like if I didn't surrender to that and say, oh, well, I'm putting on weight because I'm not moving and I'm couch bound or bed bound, there's nothing I can do about that. So I just found that extra fight in saying, oh, I have to lose weight or I have to stay fit or I have to do this, was this extra fight on the chronic fatigue, which made me feel more fatigued. Yeah. So it really didn't help me. But, you and I have had that conversation about surrender. And I was just kind of like, well, I was the same. I'm like, I don't get it. I don't get it.
It's sort of like there's another part to it. And that is, it's really about understanding expectations always leads to disappointment, because it means that we already have in our mind something that we want, and when we don't get it, that's why we get disappointed.
Yeah.
Surrendering is the first step to then, I think, you know, what you said, it's about acceptance.
Yeah.
So it's about, there's two ways that I see. Either you lean in. So you lean in and you say, I'm disabled.
Yeah.
And then you say, but what am I going to do about it?
Yeah.
Right? If we lean out and we just, you know, so there's two ways of again, leaning in is about adapting, leaning as being a victim. So when we lean out, all we're doing is just saying over and over, my life's over. I'm
Yeah.
terrible, right? So leaning out is where your head is really getting told off because the expectation isn't met. Leaning in is actually being mindful of the moment. And it's hard. I know it's hard, but it's really accepting that right now, this is what you got.
Yeah.
Right now, what's happening in your life for everyone watching or listening to this. Right now, that's all you've got. Right. But see, some people didn't pretend that it's not true.
Yes.
Or some people get angry, right? And so
Yeah.
I'm going to say, whenever you lean out and whenever you project or get upset or angry or you get down on yourself, all you have to remind yourself is that that is a way that you're doing something to yourself that doesn't make you do the work. That's
Yeah.
all that is. So if I sat there and went, oh my God, I can't walk. How am I going to go to work? If I just do that over and over again, I'm not doing the work to go to work.
Yeah.
So I was able, luckily enough, to adapt. And I remember, I'll never forget this. I went to work in a wheelchair and I gave a lecture. And looking back now, I'm thinking, what was I doing?
I saw you in your wheelchair, you like for something, and you helped me, and you were in your wheelchair, and I'm like, how did you even get up the stairs?
Well, because your mind shifts, right? And so when I was in the hospital, one of the things that I did was I watched a lot of YouTube clips, and one of the guys, I don't know his name, sorry, maybe you know it. You know that guy, Australian guy who's got no arms and legs? He's the torso.
Oh, I can't think of his name. Yeah.
Do you know who I'm talking about? Like, so every time I felt sorry for myself, I would just watch his clips, right? Because one of the things that he says in the clips, he always says, he looks into the camera and he says, don't feel sorry for me, I feel sorry for you.
Yeah.
And that really hits me every time. And it makes me think, this guy got married. I haven't got a partner.
Yeah.
You know, this guy travels the world. And so it makes me think that he's got no arms.
Yeah.
Right? So it just makes me realize I have to adapt and I have to surrender to maybe being in a wheelchair. Right? Yeah. And so your body is really quick when you surrender. When you surrender, your body adapts really quickly. It's only when you lean out and you just stay in the story of the victim that your body doesn't change. And I don't know, that could be related to weight loss and weight gain. I'm not a weight person, but well, I think the theory must be the same, right?
What you said earlier about you're still the same, I think for me, I just wanted to jump back to that because that kind of had a little light bulb. And I hope those listening are writing in their journals and taking notes, and you're going to want to rewind this session. But when you said you're still the same, I guess I always, you know, I looked at what I was before the illness, and, you know, there was that grief and loss in that. And one of the other sessions I spoke to a lady, speaker that talks about grief, or something I learned in that. But when I think about her that did all those things, and I think, oh, well, I'm not worth as much now because I'm not fit and strong and doing all those things.
So that's the good and bad.
I'm still the same. Yes, that's the good and bad. Yeah. But the thing is, I'm still the same. And you're right, I'm still the same.
Well, then what causes
how
that
relates with weight loss is, the thing is, it doesn't matter what size and shape you are still the same person, right? Yes. So when we go to body love, or even, you know, looking at how we love and appreciate ourselves, thinking about us with our morals and our values, and, you know, what we give and our heart, that is us. If we think about our essence, and I like to do that a lot in hypnosis, is make us just our essence, but we're still the same. So even as you get older, when you get more wrinkles or when you put on weight, and you'll hear people say, I still feel like I'm in my 20s, or I don't feel like I'm this older person that I see on the outside. So that, when you said that, something clicked in my mind. And I think that's how you relate. And same with, you know, with health, with weight loss, with anything, I guess, if you're going through divorce, you're still the same person. Just because you're not married anymore, or just because you're single, you're still the same. So
Yeah.
interview done. I've got everything I need.
Well, if I can just add, really the thing that you're talking about is everything is based on perception. Right. So, the reality is that, how many times have we heard over and over again, you can do anything that anyone else can do, right? And the reason why that is true is because if you don't have the perception, a lot of people might call it the manifestation, or they might call it the thought process, but it's really the perception. So when I was in the wheelchair, I perceived myself to be normal. I didn't see myself as disabled until way later, when I had to really face it. But in the first few months when I had to do rehab and all that, I just was still me, right? And I think that when people lean out, their mind automatically clicks in, and the perception is always negative when we lean out. It's always going to be self-talk.
Yeah.
Now, don't forget, as you know, the ego, right, which lives up here, which isn't real, is always going to want you to be, it's always going to want you to fail. As much as people think the ego is a good thing, the ego is a self-designed mechanism for self-sabotage.
Yeah.
So it's really important not to listen to that self-sabotage, and to take a moment to observe and perceive yourself. That's the key. I know that my ego wants me to feel sorry for myself, but I'm getting out of bed and I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't take a long time for your neural pathways to work in regards to that.
Yeah.
But people want to listen to the negative story.
I guess, on that, I think people don't know what to do, right? So they don't, realize, they don't have that kind of awareness that that's what's going on. And, sometimes it's hard to forget when we've been doing it for a long time. So for those listening at home, right, say they are in their story, or their story is, I'm not well, or I've got to, I'll be the person, right? I've got a sore back and I'm experiencing perimenopause, which I've been whinging about lately. And, I'm constantly in that loop of everything that I'm feeling and experiencing. And it's the ego, very negative kind of talk, right? And when you're in this hormonal kind of bubble, it can be difficult to get out of that mindset, even when you know how to do it. So if we're in that, we're leaning out, right? So how did we then go from that to leaning in and acceptance, awareness, all that? What's the process?
Well, number one, you're living your life. That's the simplest first step.
Yeah.
You're living your life. So if you're happy leaning out and being a sook and being a victim, good on you. I'm sorry if that's a bit harsh, but it really is. You have to be really open to the fact that this is your life. Yeah. Now, what I tell the guys, and I know it may not apply to women listening, but I want you to imagine that you're playing a video game, right? And when you've got, in the video game, I'm going to play the old Atari video game, because I'm old. So you're holding onto the console, right? And what I see on my screen, none of it's real. So you're not real, Jody.
Yeah.
No one's real. Everyone's an avatar. I'm the only thing that's real. So all I can do is either care about myself or not care about myself. Right. So when you lean out, remember, leaning out is just another way for your ego to protect you. So you will not do the work.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, it's going to be, it's hard. But it's interesting. How many times do I hear from clients or people saying, oh, I can't, it's too hard. I can't meditate. I can't do affirmations. I can't do that. And I say to them with my hand on my heart, but don't you realize that what you're doing now is harder? Yeah. It's harder to lean out and to have a life that's not fulfilled. Yep. It's harder to not be happy, right? But I think you said something before that's really important. And that is you've been doing it for a long time. People have been doing it for a long time, so they think it's real. Yeah. So I say to them, I like using metaphors. It really is no different to you going into a room and going to the corner of a room and sticking your nose into that corner and thinking that's your life. Yep. That's what you're doing. But you just have to take a moment to breathe, stop, become aware, turn around and go, oh my God, look at this big full room. Yeah. And the room represents choices. Yeah. That's what leaning in is seeing the choices. Because every time you lean in and you go, I am overweight, or I am disabled, or I am whatever, it always ends with but. Yeah. But what do I do now? So,
Yeah.
you know, really the hardest thing that people have to do is the acceptance. Because what am I saying, right? I'm saying that you have to create a whole. That means you have to love the part of you that you hate.
Mm.
That's the hard part.
Yeah.
When you learn to love it, so you're accepting it, that's half of it, right? I love my disabled part.
Yeah.
Then you go, but, and that brings the other part, and that's what synergy is.
Yeah.
But what people do is they only focus on half,
Yeah.
and then they don't know why they're lost.
Yeah.
Because you have to love the good. You know, it's like, what do they call that? The yin and the yang.
Yeah.
You have to, you know, for you to be what you want to be, you have to accept the negative of that.
Yeah.
So I guess for weight loss, you've got to love the overweight part
Yes.
to bring in the part that you know, and now, and the decision that you make, say if you can't lose the weight, then at least you have an acceptance of the part of you that wants to be underweight or lose the weight, and the part of you that's got the weight. But when you come together, you can find that all those parts are with you, and you can make a decision and you own it. You're no longer shaming yourself. You're no longer angry. You're no longer burying anything. Because, you know, the reason why we get triggered is because when we bury stuff, if I was to say, my God, I hate being disabled, I would have been triggered and I would have done things like probably drinking or eating or drugs or, you know, all those things. But when you are in a place of the whole, the whole is you.
Yeah.
The good and the bad. Why do you think we don't like the bad things? Because it's so common now, especially with social media.
You know, I think we're raised on good and bad. You know, so if we make a mistake, it's bad. If, you know, eat all your dinner or you're bad, you know, you won't get dessert if you don't eat all your dinner. So we have some, you know, messages there, getting good grades, getting a good job, being in a good relationship where, you know, nothing is so black and white. And I feel like we want to put that black and white thinking on ourselves as well. And so that's where we put this black and white thinking on ourselves and we're like, well, hang on a minute, this isn't working, because we're messy. People are messy, relationships are messy.
You're going to be vulnerable, Jodie. That's
messy,
the thing.
Our work's messy. You know, we're not perfect. And like you said, yes, and being vulnerable. And so having that yes and no, good and bad, no let them make mistakes, it stops people from being vulnerable. I know that stops me from being vulnerable, and even speaking to my sister, and we're talking through relationships and people, and even hearing her not wanting to be vulnerable in what she's experiencing reminds me of the times that I wasn't in, you know, I was defensive. So I would be defensive and I would defend whatever's going on rather than be truthful and honest with what is going on in your life, because then things never change, right? If you lean out and then you think black and white and you're in the defensive, oh, I don't eat that much, or I eat healthy all the time, or, you know, things like, and some people do eat healthy all the time. It's not always about food, but there's certain things that we do. But then if we're not truthful about that, we're not seeing it all.
Yeah. Well, you're wearing a mask, that's all.
Yeah. And we're lying to ourselves. And when we're doing that, that's part of sabotage, really. And there's comfort in the way we do things. I think that's part of it as well, don't you think?
Yeah, totally. And like I was going to say, I think one of the biggest steps is you need to acknowledge to yourselves, people listening, that everything that you've been taught is not true.
Yes.
We have to let go of all that. And it's okay to feel vulnerable because people think it's weak. It's okay to not be perfect because people look at social media and think they're not good enough. I mean, that's why we have suicide. You know, that's why a lot of men commit suicide and women, because they think that they need to meet that expectation, right? And so society needs to look at that first. Families need to look at that. You know, if someone, for example, is different, we need to not judge them. You know, we need to look at ourselves and go, why? Whenever you judge someone, whenever you say something about someone, remember, everyone is not real. It really means whatever you're saying is about you.
Yeah, 100%.
That's the biggest key. So if I say, I don't like you, Jody. It's like Jody can't take what I'm saying on. It's really me saying that means something about me isn't nice.
And this is what I'm noticing an increase in this, right? I'm really noticing, I think the bullying went down, but what I'm noticing now is the generation that are coming up, and you can see them on TikTok. The whole platform is full of bullying and people not accepting or even controlling behavior. So even they're taking on the LGBTQ community and standing for them, but what they're doing in the meantime is controlling every single aspect of what people say as a result. So they're either going from one extreme to the other, which is disturbing. And I wonder if it's got to do with, how our platforms and our mobile phones and...
Well, they're just things, right? Can I go back to... I'm going to go back because if I can leave one message for everyone, and that is, you really have to bring it back to, it's your life.
Yeah.
Who cares about what everyone else is doing?
Yeah.
The reason why we project is because we're lazy because we don't want to do the work.
Yeah.
If everyone is focused on themselves, we'd all be living ultimate lives. So when you see someone you admire, the only reason why those people are successful is because they don't care about what everyone else is doing. They focus on themselves. And if we did that, we would do what we want to achieve.
Yeah. And when you love and accept yourself on that level, it doesn't matter what anybody else says at all.
It doesn't matter because it's them.
It has no effect on you. Other people's behavior has no effect on you, good or bad.
But can we just use it as an example? So if someone is insecure and if someone is feels like they're being attacked all the time, right? Rather than using their energy to go, I'm being attacked all the time and pointing at that person, all they have to do is say, what am I doing that makes me insecure?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if they're getting attacked, does it? What am I doing to make myself not feel that way? What am I doing to make myself stronger? What am I doing to make myself happier? All you should be hearing is, what am I doing? But what do? We've been trying to do is to blame everyone.
Yeah.
So again, the really simple thing, get a Post-it note, get a poster, get a t-shirt. It simply should say, it's my life. I should be working only on me.
Yeah.
And that's the problem.
That's something that we have a promise jar, right? So for the event. And so as we listen to the speakers, hopefully people are writing a promise in their promise jar. So that would be something that they can put in their promise jar. Repeat that again.
Well, it's like everything in our life should be about us. So rather than getting triggered, rather than getting sensitive, rather than getting angry, people get angry. That's a big one. Just stop for a minute and say, why am I getting angry? What can I do not to get angry? So the questions should be both based on us. But instead, people waste hours, days, weeks projecting on someone else. That person.
What would be on the Post-it note? What was it that you said? Everything was about. No, I can't remember what you said now.
I can't remember either. I think it was just more like it's my life, right? It's my life. I'm responsible for me and how I feel. So really, don't be scared to say to people, stop whinging. I think sometimes, I know I'm a bit direct, I'm sorry, but I just think that sometimes we're very woke, right? This thing that you were bringing up was the fact, oh, look, I'm doing this, I'm protecting the environment. But at the end of the day, and again, please don't think I'm being rude, I'm just being honest. We're all selfish. We're all selfish and if we had our way, especially younger people, they want everything done. So unfortunately, guys, I'm really sorry. I had to have a breakdown and I had to become disabled to do this work, right? Yeah. So my mission and my purpose now is to say to you, you don't have to have a breakdown and you don't have to become disabled.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a crisis to become what you're meant to be. I mean, unfortunately, I did. And you had one. So, but the thing is that I wish that I didn't have to, because it was hard. It was hard. And I don't want people to go through hard. But if you don't do it now, you will have a crisis, because everyone eventually has to face a crisis when they're denying something. Now, most people face
crisis, and even I find, like you and I treat people that have had a crisis, right? So they've had a crisis and they don't know how to deal with that crisis. When, lucky we've had training, we knew what to do and went through it around the same time. We had each other. but I guess for people that have already had a crisis or they've had crisis over their lives, they're seeing us because they have not done the work. And I guess because they don't really know how.
Well, remember we spoke about this one day as well. If you don't have a why, you will ignore the crisis.
Mm.
So what the why should be is what it is that you want.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not talking about losing weight.
Yeah.
Or walking. I'm talking about I want the best life ever. That's the why, right? You want to have a why that gets you out of bed.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to find a loophole. I'll do it tomorrow.
Exactly.
I'll do it tomorrow. It's not that important.
That's the sabotage that comes.
Well, it's the value. You know, that's why I think I keep saying this is your life, right? I mean, how many mothers, right? I saw a mother this morning and she was so unhappy. And I said to her, can I ask you a question? Where are you on the ladder? She goes, what ladder? And I said, well, you know, you've got 3 kids, you've got a husband. Where are you? And she goes, I'm last.
Yeah.
Right. So that woman was basically saying, I don't value my life.
Yeah. I'm not worth it. I'm not worthy.
So the change, because a lot of the women, mothers say this, they say, oh, it's selfish of me to not put the kids first or the husband first. But the reality is that when you don't put yourself first and then you have a crisis, you're not going to be able to look after them anyway.
And also you're teaching those around you your value, but you're also teaching other, you know, maybe your daughters or your sons that they're not valuable. So when you're an adult, you're not valued.
Everything that you do is being watched and mirrored by them. Remember, if you've got a child, then your child is real and you're her or his avatar. Everyone's got avatars that we watch, right? Right? That's all it is. And remember, everyone in your life is a mirror of you. So if someone puts the finger up at you, there's something going on with you.
Yeah.
Nothing to do with the finger, because that's not real.
Yeah.
Right? That's the way I think. So I've got to say to myself, why am I reacting to that finger? I don't know that person. But what people do instead is they get angry and then they get emotional and then we get triggered to go and do something to self-soothe. So everything is outside all the time. Food, alcohol, drugs, sex, gambling, right? I think it's changing. Now people are starting to go, oh, everything's in here. I don't need to get anything from outside. And that's when the world will change really well, when we start to take the responsibility. But, you know, what's the biggest excuses that you've heard? I've heard time's a big one. I've got no time. It's too hard. Well, it just simply means that you're not looking at your life. The why isn't there. The why is the thing that drives you. Now, just because you have a why doesn't mean that you're going to get better overnight. It just means that you have a why that's going to drive you to do it. It could take, you may not never get what you want. Yeah. But you're driving yourself towards it rather than getting caught up in your head that's leaning out. Yeah. You're not listening to the self-sabotage. You're not listening because you know, somewhere along the line, you've got to know it's not true. Now, I've got to do a little side note. We're not talking about major traumas here or anything psychiatric. Like, we're just talking about like everyday, all of, us. Yeah. We don't have mental problems or anything that are going to make us not do this. This is just, everyone can do this. That's just living a normal life, going to work, going home, cooking dinner. Yeah. If you're not happy, then you haven't really asked yourself the big questions. Yeah. And I think like if we summarize that a bit, like if somebody in your life is annoying you constantly, if you find yourself constantly complaining about a person, then that is a reflection on what you don't like about yourself, or and you're recognizing yourself, the thing you don't like about yourself in that other person. Yes. And so that's why you'll come across people that some people you just are not your bag, but I'm talking about when you find yourself whinging about them. Yeah. And so if you and I were in the same room, we'd have different, if I said, I don't like that person, you're not necessarily going to say the same thing because you're looking at that person through your mirror. Yeah. Right. And other people will, you know what I mean? Like, so everyone can't, otherwise we'd all agree. The reality is that you're being triggered because that mirror, remember the hole I talked about? Yeah. If something's missing, say I was judgmental, right? And so I don't really like to say that out loud. I'm ashamed of that. So I removed the judgmental part and threw it away. Now my circle isn't whole. And so there's a part missing, and it has to, if I don't look at myself and go, why am I not judgmental? Why is this going on? Then
Yeah.
I will look outside myself and I will find all the judgmental people,
Yeah.
because that fills that space,
Yeah.
right? And then I go, oh my God, I hate that person. I hate that person. But in reality, it's just the space that's missing, that's looking for that to fill it.
Yeah.
And that's why I see them.
And when you understand that, and like, you know what I find sometimes?
Freedom.
I laugh, right? Because I'm scrolling through Facebook, and you know, you get to those posts that trigger you, and I go to like type, and I'm like, oh, hang on a minute, why is this triggering me? What is it? What in this post triggered me, right? And then I see other people replying to posts, and I'm like, oh, you got triggered. But once you know this, and now that you all know this, whenever
we couldn't get away with it, can we? This year, COVID has been the gift for everyone. This whole thing has made us all realize this, hasn't it?
Horrible, but I believe that as well. I feel like there's, I don't know whether it's just us, but I feel like there's just so much that we've learned in this time, and it's been this opportunity for a lot of, and we've been lucky here. We still had a lot of deaths in Victoria, but nothing like overseas. So I don't want to take away from that, because I think some people's experiences with COVID's been absolutely horrible, losses of jobs, money and all that kind of stuff.
I know, but can I add that, Jody, that like, even with that, which are terrible things, remember, we have to come back to there's no such thing as a bad situation.
Yeah.
Because this is the hardest part. Because we can't all of a sudden go, oh no, COVID is not part of this story. Everything is a perception. So even when someone dies, like my mum died recently, and so I grieved, but then instantly I went from grieving to creating a legacy.
Yeah.
Right. So my perception was, I'm going to have my mum in my life all the time as a legacy. Well, when I look at my family, they're leaning out, and they're making it about them.
Yeah.
Right. Which I know it's grief, but if you know what I mean, they're making it about them. So they're going, oh my God, I'm sad. Instead of saying, I miss her, what can I do now?
Yeah.
Right. So I filled that sadness with a legacy. Yeah. So everything, even when it's the worst situation, I know it's hard. Even when, like before we started, you were mentioning that person that was attacked. You were telling me about.
Yes, one of the speakers.
And they were, so that's what acceptance is.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you've become part of a shadow, and it becomes your problem forever. And that's why people have trauma forever, because they don't find, I was attacked. They don't say to themselves, I was attacked. It wasn't my fault. What can I learn from this? And then they go, and then they create something. That's how those people write books or become, you know what I mean? The people that stay in the trauma will become their life.
Yeah. And so in her example, and you can go and watch that episode, but in that was something that she learned, because she didn't face the grief, and she just went bang straight into, going out and changing policy, and dove straight into that without actually facing all the grief. And then that ended up in her body, and then it caused trauma in her body. And so she had to go through that process that we're talking about. So that everything. That was, that's a big example, a real life example of what we're talking about here. So if someone's saying, all right, well, I can recognize myself in some of the things that you're talking about here, I feel like I'm doing that. And first off, you may feel that pull on you to back away from this conversation and feel judged or feel something. Because I know I did when I first was learning this stuff. I'd be like, oh, that's not me. But if somebody is starting to realize, oh, hang on, there's something here in this conversation for me, where would they start? What would be that one thing that you would suggest for them to do? Say they're leaning out, right? They're leaning out on their life. What would be that one major strategy? And get your notepads and your.
Well, firstly, I want to say that every self-help book is basically a regurgitation of the other books, right? So mental health isn't a big problem, and really, if you listen to this maybe again, it's not complicated. right? It's only complicated when we create what you were saying, that perception of it's hard or I can't or it's not me, right? So the all of this is based on Buddhism. It's very simple. When, you know, I remember you and I went to Bali and I was reading a Buddhist book, and it was basically the same thing. It's just regurgitated to Western ideas. So what I would start off doing first would be, you have to learn not to live here. You have to learn to live here. So when stuff happens in your life, we can easily get consumed in thinking, right? And the thinking is going to cause us to lean out. So the first step would be just to sit and breathe and let that emotion and that pain and whatever it is, just to be there, just sit with it. Because the most common thing that we want to do is we want to get rid of it. If I, you know, every time I see a client with anxiety, they say, oh, can you get rid of it? No, we have to learn to love it. And that's when they go, what? Because otherwise we're not going to be whole and we can't move through. Right? Anything that we've got happen in our lives, unfortunately, we can't dig a hole underneath it. We can't pretend that's not there and just magically walk through it. We have to feel it. Right? So if it doesn't get felt and we've buried it, just be mindful that it will come back. You know, when another trigger pops up. So, you know, that's, in relationships, we call that baggage. In weight, we call that emotional eating. You know, in trauma, we call that alcoholism or drug addiction or whatever, addictions. So really, it's about courage, but it really is about sitting down and understanding what your values are and understanding what your why is. Remember, the why is just simply you saying, I deserve to have a good life. I deserve to be happy. I don't need to compare myself because this is it. So if you're rich or poor, if you're tall or short, if you're big or small, this is your life. So what? A lot of people say, oh, I'll do it when. How many times do we hear that? I'll go to the gym when I lose weight.
Start Monday.
It's actually, life is happening right now. In this moment. Right? So that's another thing, is don't live in the future. Because remember, when you start saying, I will do it when, it's going to cause anxiety. And when you start saying, oh my God, I wish I could go back to the good old days, depression. You have to accept the moment. Even when the moment is bad, this is the other thing, right? Even when the moment in life is bad, even when you're having the lowest of lows, remember this, that the universe is come with a gift. It's a gift. You just have to pay attention to what that is. So I would never in a million years not be disabled. That was the best gift in the world. You know what I mean? As much as people go, what? I say that about my when I experienced the extreme fatigue, the emotional trauma. I'm grateful for going through that, because I'm just at this different level. You know, I learned so much. I learned so much about it, and it's still my teacher. It still teaches me today. You know, I still can feel the stress that comes up, and that teach, and I'm listening. I wasn't listening before. Like you said, you were getting those little hints. You know, I wasn't listening before, but now I'm listening. Sometimes sometimes I'm not hearing it straight away, and then I'm like, oh, I know what I need to do. See, when I had my breakdown of my anxiety, I now have, like, I imagine this dog, and it's sitting right here next to me. So every time that I do stuff like this, every time I see a client, I have to remember that I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the dog that I've trained now, because my anxiety doesn't do anything unless I cause it. My perception causes it, but he's trained. So I don't want to get rid of it. He's part of me, but I don't play with it. So that's the key. The key is learning how to sit. And if you haven't done a values assessment, then I would recommend that you sit down and think about what your values are. Now, remember, your values aren't goals. Your values are, so if you wanted to lose weight, you wouldn't say, I want to lose weight, and that's a value. No, the value would be, I want to be living a healthy life. Because it has to be forever, right? And most of us have got values that were created by us when we were little. There's sort of things that, are you a good person or a bad person? Do you have, you know, it's in here, but when we unplug and go in here, it changes the story, and we end up doing things that we don't really know why we did that. You know, it makes us a different person because our ego then tricks us. So, but when you listen, it's intuition. You all know what I'm talking about. That voice that says, don't go into the pantry. You know, but then your head says, oh, and just have one, right? and that's, I'm not saying that's about a weight thing. That's any addiction thing. And that would be, I could do that, but
You know,
Yeah.
I could do that.
Oh, you said I'll start tomorrow. Right. So in other words, that cookie or that drug or that whatever you're doing, that becomes more valuable than you.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about knowing that it's, loving yourself means that you know that you don't want to put that in your body because you either love yourself or you want, and that has to align to your why. Now, I'm not saying that everyone has to lose weight or everyone has to be, but you have to have a why and actually be comfortable.
So so that one thing that you think, like if we want to lean in, understanding your why you want to change, do you feel like that's where you will start? Understand the purpose of why you want things to be different.
Yeah, ask yourself why, and really, really think about if you don't read that why, and it's going to trigger you to get out of bed and do something. Like that I meditate at 5 a.m, right?
Yeah.
Now I do that because I want to walk.
Yeah.
If I don't do that, I may not walk.
Yeah.
Because I've got stress and I've got to get rid of it, right? I've got stress like everyone else. So 5 to 6 is my way to release the stress so I can get up and have a day like normal people, but I've got to do a bit extra because I've got a nerve damage.
Yeah.
So the why is, I don't care if I'm tired. I don't care because the walking part's more important.
Yeah.
So thinking about what you want is going to be the thing that drives you. And we can call it the zone. We can call it many things.
Yeah.
It's that thing that makes you want to do something because you want it.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what the other things that are tempting you, because they're second or third.
And the strategy will come, I guess, once you know your why and you're connected to that emotionally. The strategy around that will come, meaning that you'll find it. You'll find the right person to follow or listen to, or the right podcast, or the right not right or wrong, but your journey will unfold once you make that decision of why what you want to change and why, and you're emotionally connected to that. The rest will follow.
Yeah. If you I think all of you know what I mean. If you really understand your why, you will be hungry for information.
Yes.
That's like anything else. Think about if you want to renovate a house. You just become so obsessed with
making Pinterest boards and
that's the same thing. But we don't do it on ourselves, which is interesting. We do it on other things, but we don't do it on ourselves. Well, times are changing.
Maybe we need to make an app like Pinterest for the self.
You may be.
Where we can pin boards of our mental health. Alrighty, so thank you so much for.
Thank you. That was fun.
I know, we could talk forever.
I wish I could see the people.
I know. What we'll do? We'll do a live one, and
I want everyone that's listening to this podcast, to this episode, to post a picture of themselves in the comments.
That would be great.
So I can see you all, because I think we have to remember to connect with each other.
Definitely, we have to remember. And speaking of connection, how can, if people want to go and listen to you more, because I know I can listen to you all day, how will they find you? You actually do a podcast,
so I do a podcast called the Secret Men's Business Podcast, which is about 2 years old, but I'm excitingly just about to launch a new podcast called the Awaecnan Connection, which is, Awaecnan means, it means finding fulfillment through non-specific things. Like sometimes we have a connection to happiness through materialistic things. Like if I found the right partner, if I lost the weight, if I bought that car. But this podcast is about meeting people and learning how to find happiness through yourself.
Yeah.
So if you want to maybe put the links in or something, that's how they can find me.
Yep.
So thank you.
Oh, beautiful. So what we'll do is we'll put the link to that new podcast on the speakers page. If you were watching this episode on YouTube or on Facebook, just know that you'll need to be registered to get access to all the speakers' gifts and links. That's easy to do. The link will be on this video. So just go and register and go into your emails and you'll see today's episode. And there will be the link to Joe's podcast, which will be great.
Yeah. Can I say one more thing quickly?
Yes.
If you remove one TV show a day, that gives you space to do this work.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, just remove one little thing. I mean, half an hour. Yeah. Right? If you just remove that and say, I'm replacing that with, and you'll find the time.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. You can find the time.
Yeah.
We just have to prioritize ourselves and prioritize our journeys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Bye.